The Great Storm. The night HMS Victory braved the Tempest. This narrative is proudly brought to you by Polly Speaks For You. At Polly Speaks For You, we are committed to empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through innovative text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You is more than just software. It's a tool for self-expression, connecting people with the world in meaningful ways. By blending the richness of history with cutting-edge technology, Polly Speaks For You demonstrates that every voice, whether preserving the past or shaping the future, has the potential to inspire. While we strive to make the story engaging, our primary focus is on storytelling itself. The visuals are secondary. We're showcasing the remarkable capabilities of text-to-speech software that bring these stories to life. The night had descended swiftly, as if the sun itself had fled from the oncoming storm. HMS Victory, her sails unfurled, cut through the dark waters of the English Channel. The veteran crew, seasoned by countless battles and endless days at sea, worked with the precision of a well-oiled machine as they prepared the ship for what was to come. But no amount of skill, no preparation, could ready them for the fury that now gathered on the horizon. A fury so vast and unforgiving that even the sea itself seemed to tremble in anticipation. Above, the skies churned with a growing malevolence. Great, boiling clouds rolled in from the west, black as ink, their bellies swollen with the threat of destruction. The air was thick and heavy, as though the weight of the heavens pressed down on them. A low, distant rumble of thunder echoed across the water, signaling the storm's approach like the growl of a beast awakened from its slumber. There was a stillness that fell over the ship in those brief moments before the first gust of wind, a silence that spoke of the danger ahead. Captain Thomas Hardy, his weathered face set in a grim mask of determination, stood on the quarterdeck, his eyes locked on the horizon. He could feel the tension in the air, the electricity that crackled invisible, and he knew what was coming. The crew, hardened though they were, had begun to whisper of ill omens. Some said the storm was unnatural, a curse sent by Neptune himself to drag the ship and her men into the abyss. Hardy dismissed such talk, but even he could not shake the feeling that something more than a simple gale was on the wind this night. All hands, brace yourselves. Hardy's voice rang out like a crack of thunder, a command that cut through the growing murmur among the men. The call to action swept through the ship like wildfire. Below deck, men scrambled to secure the cannons, tying down anything that could become a deadly missile should the ship be thrown about by the waves. Above, the rigging crew climbed the masts with practiced swiftness, moving to reef the sails before the wind could tear them apart. The deck became a frenzy of activity as the storm bore down upon them. The first gust of wind struck Victory like a slap from an unseen hand, ripping through the sails with a force that sent a shudder through the entire ship. The ropes groaned in protest, the sails snapping taut as the crew fought to bring them under control. The ship lurched, tilting dangerously as the waves began to grow in size, swelling and crashing against her hull. The wind howled, shrieking through the rigging like a chorus of banshees, its fury rising with every passing second. "Reef the mainsail!" Hardy shouted over the roar of the wind, his voice barely audible above the din. The men struggled to comply, their hands raw and frozen as they worked against the relentless force of the storm. Rain began to fall in thick sheets, turning the deck into a slick, treacherous expanse of water and wood. Lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in brief, blinding bursts, revealing the towering waves that now surrounded them, mountains of water that rose and fell like the breath of a titan. The storm was upon them in full force now, a monstrous thing that seemed bent on tearing Victory apart piece by piece. The ship pitched and rolled with every swell, her masts groaning under the strain. Below deck, the sound of water rushing in through the seams of the hull echoed ominously. Men worked the bilge pumps with a frantic desperation, their muscles burning from the effort as they struggled to keep the ship afloat. The cold, briny water sloshed around their ankles, rising with each minute, a constant reminder of the peril they faced. In the midst of the chaos, Admiral Horatio Nelson, renowned for his calm under fire, stood in his quarters, hands clasped behind his back as he felt the ship heave beneath his feet. He had faced death on the battlefield more times than he could count, had stared down the guns of enemy ships without flinching, but there was something about the storm, this storm, that filled him with an unshakable sense of dread. He knew, as all men of the sea did, that no amount of courage or cunning could command the waves. The sea was a force older and more powerful than any man-made vessel, and it answered to no one. As if to drive the point home, the storm redoubled its assault. A deafening roar filled the air as the wind whipped the waves into a frenzy, each one higher than the last. Lightning split the sky in jagged arcs, lighting the world in an eerie, ghostly glow. For a moment, in the midst of one of those flashes, the crew saw what awaited them, a wave taller than the masts of Victory, bearing down on them with the speed of an avalanche. Brace for impact! Hardy's voice, hoarse from shouting, was nearly lost to the wind, but the men heard him, and they clung to whatever they could find as the massive wave crashed down upon the ship. It struck with the force of 1,000 cannon blasts, the water cascading over the decks, sweeping men from their feet, and threatening to carry them overboard into the churning sea. For a terrifying moment, the ship listed to one side, nearly capsizing under the weight of the water. But Victory held. The ship, though battered, began to right itself, rising from the depths like a phoenix from the ashes. The men, soaked to the bone and gasping for air, scrambled to their posts, their hands shaking as they worked to repair the damage. The rigging, torn in places, flailed wildly in the wind, the sails reduced to ragged shreds in the face of the storm's fury. But still, Victory pressed on, her prow cutting through the waves with a stubborn determination that mirrored that of her crew. Below deck, Nelson listened to the cacophony of the storm and the frantic work of the men. His thoughts turned, as they often did in moments of peril, to the Empire, to the battles they had fought, and the ones yet to come. He knew that the storm, terrible as it was, could not be allowed to win. HMS Victory was more than just a ship. She was a symbol of British might, of the indomitable spirit of a nation that refused to bow to any foe, be it man or nature. The hours dragged on, each one more grueling than the last. The storm showed no signs of abating. The crew, though exhausted, fought on, their bodies pushed to the limit, their minds focused on one thing: survival. Men who had faced the cannons of enemy ships, who had boarded enemy vessels in the heat of battle, now fought a different kind of war, a war against the very elements themselves. Then, as if by some divine mercy, the storm began to weaken. The winds, once howling with the force of a hurricane, began to lessen, their screams fading into whispers. The waves, still towering, began to lose their height, rolling less violently as the sea slowly calmed. The rain, which had fallen in relentless sheets, began to ease, turning into a light drizzle that pattered gently on the deck. The men, weary and beaten, stood in stunned silence as the storm finally loosened its grip on them. The sky, still dark with clouds, began to lighten in the east as the first pale rays of dawn pierced the gloom. For a moment, no one moved. They were alive. HMS Victory was alive. Captain Hardy, his face streaked with salt and rain, allowed himself a brief moment of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, they had survived the storm. He looked out over the deck at the men who had fought so valiantly and nodded in silent gratitude. Below, Nelson emerged from his quarters, his expression unreadable as he surveyed the damage. He too knew what this meant. Victory had lived up to her name once more, not in battle this time, but in the face of something far greater. As the sun finally broke free of the clouds, casting its golden light across the battered ship and the calming sea, there was a sense of triumph in the air. HMS Victory had weathered the storm, proving that not even the fury of nature could break her spirit. And so she sailed on, her sails ragged but proud, her crew battered but unbroken, a testament to the strength and resilience of those who dared to brave the seas. She had survived the great storm, a storm that would go down in history as the night Victory herself became legend. If you're enjoying this story, Please remember to hit like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue creating content that educates and empowers. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software and to support our dyslexic-friendly initiative, visit www.polispeaks4u.co.za. Drop a comment if you want more information. Thank you for watching this video.